She always believed heartbreak was inevitable. From the very first time she saw him, she knew it wasn't going to end with a happy ever after. There was something in his eyes, a kind of distant fire, as if he was always searching for something far beyond her reach. Still she stayed, because sometimes the heart chooses the very thing it knows might break it. In the weeks leading up to that rainy afternoon, she had been preparing herself in the quietest ways. She stopped saving his messages like little treasures. She stopped imagining a future in the sound of his laugh. She taught herself to breathe slower when his replies came later than usual, to swallow the lump in her throat when he looked at someone else just a moment too long. It wasn't that she wanted the heartbreak, but she wanted to be ready for it. She thought if she could anticipate the fall, it would hurt less when she finally hit the ground. She didn't tell anyone about the way her heart had begun to guard itself. Her friends saw her smiling, laughing at the right moments, and they believed the smile. No one saw the silent conversations she had with herself at night, the way she rehearsed letting go, the way she stared at the ceiling while the clock whispered past midnight. It was on a rainy day, the kind of day when the sky feels heavier than your thoughts, that everything changed. She hadn't planned to see him. She hadn't even planned to leave the house. But the air smelled of rain and wet earth, and for some reason, she felt the pull to step outside. She wrapped herself in her old blue sweater, the one he once said made her look like the sky before a storm. The streets were almost empty, glossed with rain that shimmered beneath the dull glow of streetlights. She liked the way the rain blurred the edges of things, as if the world itself had softened for a moment. She wasn't expecting to see him there, standing under the half-broken street lamp at the corner where they used to wait for the bus. He looked older somehow, not in years, but in the way he carried his shoulders, as if the weight of something unseen pressed down on him. For a moment, neither of them moved. The rain filled the silence between them like an uninvited guest. She thought about turning around, about walking away before he even noticed her, but his eyes found hers as if they had been searching all along. He didn't smile the way he used to. There was no easy grin, no playful spark. Instead, there was a softness, almost an apology. She felt her breath catch because she realized she had been holding onto anger as a shield. She had been ready to hate him for leaving, ready to convince herself that he didn't care. But the look in his eyes unraveled all the neat defenses she had built. They didn't talk at first. They just stood there, letting the rain soak through their clothes, letting the world slow down around them. Finally, he spoke, his voice lower than she remembered, more hesitant. He told her he never stopped thinking about her, even when he pretended he did. He said there were things he hadn't been brave enough to explain before, that sometimes love isn't lost because it fades, but because we don't know how to hold it without breaking it. She listened, not because she was ready to forgive, but because something in the rain in that gray afternoon made the truth feel heavier and more real. She thought of all the nights she had prepared herself for heartbreak, all the ways she had imagined this moment, with anger, with tears, with a final goodbye. Yet here it was, nothing like the scenes she had rehearsed in her mind. He reached out then, almost uncertainly, and brushed a wet strand of hair from her face. The touch was both familiar and strange, like hearing an old song you had forgotten but still somehow knew every word to. She didn't step back. The rain kept falling, but it didn't feel as cold anymore. She realized that heartbreak isn't something you can rehearse for. It isn't a scene you can prepare to play out. Sometimes it arrives dressed as a goodbye, and other times it returns wearing the same eyes you once loved. They walked for a while without speaking, their footsteps splashing in shallow puddles. He told her about the things he had run from, not her, but his own fears, his own unfinished battles. She told him about the quiet strength she had found in the spaces he had left behind. There was no grand declaration, no promise that everything would go back to the way it was. There was only an unspoken understanding that some stories aren't about perfect endings, but about finding each other again in the middle of the storm. As they reached the little cafe where they had once spent hours sharing coffee and dreams, they stopped. The lights inside glowed softly, fogging up the windows. For a moment, they stood there like two strangers at the start of something new. She thought about the girl she had been, the one who prepared for heartbreak, who braced herself for the fall. She realized that maybe the fall had already happened, and what came next wasn't another heartbreak, but a chance to rise differently. The rain slowed to a drizzle, leaving behind the scent of fresh beginnings. They went inside, sitting by the window where the raindrops slid down the glass like tiny silent stories. They didn't talk much. Sometimes silence holds more healing than words ever could. She didn't know if they would end up together again. She didn't know if this was a second chance or just a fleeting chapter that would teach her something new about love. But as she sipped her coffee and watched the gray clouds break apart, she felt a quiet peace she hadn't felt in a long time. That rainy day hadn't just changed her relationship with him. It had changed the story she was telling herself. She learned that love isn't always about certainty. Sometimes it's about standing in the rain, unsure of the ending, and still choosing to stay for the moment that's unfolding right in front of you. And so, the girl who once prepared for heartbreak found herself unprepared for hope. She didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the need to prepare for the worst.